Hello there, today we're going to talk about a plague Nope. Nope!
Everybody's thinking about me, but I feel alright. Everybody's out again, but I feel alright.
Big ol' pig balls! A Plague Tale Innocence is the best game I've played this year. It's simple as that, folks. This is one of the most incredible experiences I've had playing a game in a long, long time. It manages to be both heartwarming and horrifying at the same time. And it's not just because of the rats, although the rats are a huge part of the fucking nope that makes up a significant portion of this game. No, this game is primarily a stealth adventure title with some puzzle elements. You play as Amicia, who has to safeguard her brother Hugo from the Inquisition. They want him for mysterious conspiratorial reasons, which you learn as you go through the game. It's a really, really intriguing character piece. They've made some wonderful characters in this. The main character, Amicia, is a child, essentially, literally a child who has to look after a younger child, and they managed to portray that excellently in the writing. She is, at heart, still a kid with a massive responsibility. She snaps at her brother, she's impatient with her brother. She doesn't know Hugo very well. Her mother kept him away for a long time, so she barely saw him, and now she's got to protect him. And she clearly loves him, but he's difficult. You know, he's ill, he's petulant, he throws tantrums like any other young child would, and she, clearly in the writing, it's displayed she's not fully equipped to deal with that, but she's doing her best, and that makes her certainly one of the most human protagonists that you could hope to find in a video game. As for the gameplay itself, again, running with the theme of this being some of the best stuff I've played in ages, it's some of the most horrifying stealth. I shouldn't say horrifying, that should be reserved purely for the rats. Terrifying is the word. Even against humans like this isn't horror gameplay, this is pure stealth. You're trying to avoid, in this particular instance, Inquisitors and their soldiers. And yet, because of how tightly paced and directed these stealth segments are, every single time it gives me that flight or fight response. Mostly flight, because you can't fight very well. Anyway, let's get to the rats. So, another big portion of this game is the avoidance of killer rats that burst out of the ground, that swarm from crevices, that surround the environment. Their only real weakness is light. If you stay in the light, you can be safe from them, but you've got to work out how to get from one light source to another throughout the course of the game. Sometimes you create your own light source, sometimes you have to set things on fire, sometimes you've just got to run. There are some really wonderful chase sequences in this game, not just running away from rats, but running away from humans as well. One early level is set in a village, and the villagers are angry and scared and blaming anything they can on the plague, and so they try and chase and kill you and Hugo, and it's amazing. It's really, really good. This game is so good, folks. This game is really, really good. Now, it's published by Focus Home Interactive. It's developed by Abobo, Hot Abs, check out I can't remember the exact name of it, but they've done an incredible job. And like many games that Focus Home Interactive has put out, it's got a lot of clever ideas, and it's just a little bit below what you expect from modern video games in terms of graphics, but that does not mean it isn't gorgeous looking in terms of artistic direction and design. They managed to make these environments look incredibly populated, and if you closely scrutinize the rats, they don't look all that amazing, but from a distance and taken as just this squirming swarm, they are just absolutely skin-crawling. There are moments where you drop meat on the ground, like you can throw your Amicia's sling can be used to knock big hunks of butcher's meat onto the floor, and the way the rats rush towards it and just consume it, just engulf it, it's absolutely nightmarish. And this is coming from someone who has a lot of fondness for the horror trope of the swarm, especially rats. As a kid, I'd read many passages from James Herbert's horror book, The Rats. It's just simply called The Rats. And I especially indulged in a text adventure based on James Herbert's The Rats, which is somewhat of a very obscure text adventure. Not a lot of people know it. I once tweeted out about it, and very few people, I think maybe 2, actually knew what I was talking about. But that was a merciless look at just how horrific an attack of rats could be, right down to them swarming babies in a crib. And this game manages to play with that. There isn't a single level in this game that doesn't have some newly traumatic experience. In this section, for example, there are just piles and piles of pig corpses, which you sometimes have to step over, as we saw earlier in that footage. You use a big avalanche of pig bodies to knock the rats out of the way. Every single level has at least one memorable thing in it, something that's incredibly tense, something that's haunting, something that is just not for the squeamish whatsoever. And it has that lack of mercy in its writing. When you see a rat attack, it truly is. It's distressing. It's distressing to look at. The fields of blood, there are battlefields with just corpses everywhere that you sometimes have to step on, and the kids are reacting to it because, again, they're fucking children and they're dealing with this. And I don't often respond that way to a video game because the writing often doesn't really evoke that sense of someone way too young to be dealing with horror having to deal with horror. Normally a video game protagonist is just there to respond and react, and that's all they're there for. This game actually has character growth and interactions, and as the game goes on, you meet more characters, and they all have different relationships. The script is incredible. The stealth sequences are normally quite linear. There's normally one clear way to do it, but because of that, they manage to direct and pace everything according to their intricate design. So when the game wants you to feel very, very nervous, it will time the positioning, it will place rather the soldiers and time their movements in such a way that you always feel like they might just catch you. This is one good example. You throw this pot and you've got to get yourself and Hugo through the window, and you've got to get Hugo through first, and it's just... They've managed to work this at their own speed and pitch to such a degree that right now, as I was doing that, I was crapping myself. Even though I did exactly what had to be done. But because it is in such a tight environment, it always feels like you're getting through by the skin of your teeth. And that is something so difficult to pull off, and almost impossible in a more open world where you can approach things from many different angles with many different tools. Speaking of tools, Amicia has a number of alchemists' weaponry that she can use. I say weaponry, I just didn't want to say tools again because I'd already said tools, and now I've said tools way too much, so I'm just going to say you unlock different alchemists' tools throughout the game. You start off with a rock and a sling, which you can throw at unprotected enemy heads, and that will kill them. But the sling makes noise as you swing it around, so this isn't a game in which you can just kill your way through each environment. That's just not going to happen. But in desperate times, you can fire off a rock. You can make sleep powder, you can make an explosive, like a medieval Molotov almost, and they can be used as saving throws. If a human enemy catches you and you've got sleeping powder, you can crush it in their face to get away from them. If a rat swarm is surrounding you, you can throw one of these, I'll just call them medieval Molotovs. They've all got fancy names, mostly French names, because this is set in France, and all the characters have nice French accents, so nice and authentic. Anyway, different tools, some of them very hard to make, need a lot of materials, and that can actually affect the upgrades to your sling and your character attributes, because they all require materials to craft things for like her clothes, her pockets, her sling. So it really is a balancing act between making your tools to use in the moment and having an eye toward longer upgrades. And yes, we did just have to lure that pig to its certain gruesome death so that we could get through these rats. This game has everything I want. It's got a wonderfully directed linear progression. It's got an evocative story, wonderful characters, some real... I mean, I think I've managed to portray exactly how just disturbing I find this game. And Focus Home Interactive as a publisher has just been knocking it out of the park, has it not? They've done Vampire, The Surge, Styx, Call of Cthulhu was one of their publications, I believe. Just what they're doing is they are serving a starving market. Not to get on my high horse about the AAA game industry in such a glowing review, but where they've been letting us down with all of their live service games and their focus on open world and looter-shooter style experiences, they've left a lot of empty shelf space, especially in that mid-tier of game that isn't quite a so-called AAA experience. And this game is their best one, I think. This should be held up as an example of what a service mid-tier publishers can provide to the game industry. This is on par with another sort of not quite AAA game, something like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. In fact, I would say this is far superior to even that, because I know a lot of people like that. If you liked that and want more of that grim, almost helpless, hopeless sense of foreboding, this game has that and a whole lot more. It's... I don't know what else to say. Like, and not because... Normally when I reach this point in a video where I don't know what else to say, it's because I've slammed it and trashed it so much that I'm now spent on anything, any human feeling. But this, I trip over my words just trying to get people to be as excited about it as I am. The moment I started playing it, I had a feeling this would be something special, and as I've played it more and more and got further and further in, I've only continued to love it. A Plague Tale: Innocence. I hope it's the start of other Plague Tales. I hope we get more. These rat mechanics needs further exploration, and the writing team who worked on this needs to do more. More and more and more. I adore this thing. And I sort of hate it insofar as those rats are pure effing nope. But it's a good hate because of the rats. God damn, this game is fucking good. Oh, I forgot to say the music is bloody great too.